There's a little blue and yellow can sitting on grocery shelves all over the world. Most people walk right past it. Some people make fun of it. But here's the thing nobody tells you. That humble little can of mystery meat helped feed the armies that won the Second World War. It kept entire nations from starving. And it permanently changed what half the Pacific eats for dinner. To this day. This is the story of Spam. And trust me, it's a lot bigger than the can. Yeah, the thing your grandpa joked about? Secret war hero. Stay with me. Our story starts in the 1930s, in a small town called Austin, Minnesota. The Great Depression is grinding on. People barely have money for food. A man named J. Hormel, son of the founder of the Hormel Meat Company, has a problem. His factory is sitting on piles of pork shoulder, a cut almost nobody wants to buy. So he grinds it up with ham, salt, sugar, a little potato starch, and a pinch of sodium nitrite to keep it a nice pink color. He seals it in a can. The magic part? It doesn't need a refrigerator. It lasts almost forever. And it costs a fraction of what fresh meat costs. There's just one problem. Nobody wants it. The first name was Hormel Spiced Ham. Riveting, I know. It sold terribly. Rich people thought, why eat canned meat when I can buy real meat? And poor people in the Depression, they still couldn't spare the coins. Worse, competitors quickly copied it and flooded the shelves. So to recap, a meat nobody wanted, made from a cut nobody wanted with a name nobody remembered, in an economy where nobody had money. Off to a great start. So J. Hormel did something clever. On New Year's Eve, he threw a party. And to get a drink, every guest had to drop a suggested name into a box. As the night went on and the drinks kept flowing, the ideas got more creative. The winner was a Broadway actor named Kenneth Daigneault, who, conveniently, was the brother of a Hormel vice president. His suggestion, Spam. He won $100. Best $100 that company ever spent. And here's a fun part. To this day, nobody's totally sure what Spam stands for. Some say it's shoulder of pork and ham. Others swear it's just spiced ham mashed together. Hormel has mostly just smiled and let the mystery ride. Oh, and ever wonder why it's called luncheon meat? Back then, working-class Americans didn't really eat a sit-down lunch. A luncheon was an upper-class affair. So the name stuck. Luncheon meat. That's the same word that traveled the world and became wukenru in Chinese. So the cheapest meat in America got its name from a drunk party game, and its category from rich people's fancy lunches. History has jokes. Then 1941 happens. America enters the war. And suddenly the entire problem of the modern military is this. How do you feed millions of soldiers, spread across freezing Arctic bases, scorching Pacific islands, and North African deserts? With no refrigeration? You need a food that's cheap, that lasts, that survives heat, that you can eat straight from the can, that delivers the calories to keep marching. Suddenly, that flop from Minnesota looks like a miracle. At the peak, Hormel was shipping up to 15 million cans overseas every single week. Over the course of the war, more than 150 million pounds of it fed soldiers and civilians around the globe. By 1944, over 90% of the company's canned output was going to the government. On those hot Pacific islands, where fresh meat would rot in hours, Spam wasn't just food. It was a strategic resource. And the soldiers found other uses too. They used the grease to oil their rifles and waterproof their boots. They even flattened the empty cans and soldered them onto bomber wings to patch bullet holes. A can of leftover pork that lubricates your gun and patches your plane. That's not lunch. That's a Swiss Army knife you can eat. There was just one group of people who did not appreciate the miracle. The American soldiers who had to eat it. Every single day. The cooks fried it for breakfast, baked it for lunch, stuffed it into dinner, made it into a patty the next morning. The troops came up with nicknames: mystery meat, something posing as meat, ham that didn't pass its physical. J. Hormel got so much hate mail from troops that he kept a special file of it. He told a magazine he'd been compared to history's worst villains, just for making a can of pork. Even the top general couldn't escape it. After the war, General Eisenhower wrote to Hormel. And this is almost word for word. During World War II, I ate my share of Spam along with millions of other soldiers. I'll even confess to a few unkind remarks about it. But as former commander-in-chief, I believe I can still officially forgive you your only sin, sending us so much of it. When the Supreme Allied Commander roasts your product in writing, that's a 5-star review you frame on the wall. But here's the reversal. While American soldiers were rolling their eyes, America's allies were sending thank you notes. Through the Lend-Lease program, Spam was shipped to Britain, the Soviet Union, and beyond, for soldiers and for starving civilians. The Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev later wrote in his memoirs that without the canned meat America sent, the Soviet Union would have struggled to feed its army. And a young Margaret Thatcher, yes, the future Prime Minister, remembered opening a can of Spam with friends one Christmas. She called it, without a trace of irony, a feast. And then there's my favorite moment of the whole war. After the Normandy landings in 1944, some American soldiers were complaining, again, about the endless Spam. 2 visiting British officers overheard them. They didn't argue. They simply reached over, took 2 slices off the Americans' plates, dropped them in the dirt, picked them back up, and ate them. The message was silent and devastating. You think this is bad? You should see what we're eating. Nothing humbles you faster than a British officer eating dirt-covered Spam to prove a point. Respect. Now here's the part that makes Spam more than a war story. When the war ended, the soldiers went home. But the cans didn't. American troops had introduced Spam to every place they were stationed, and in many of those places it never left. It became dinner. In Hawaii, it became Spam musubi, a slice of Spam on rice, wrapped in seaweed, sold in every convenience store today. Hawaiians now eat millions of cans a year. On Guam and the nearby islands, some of the most brutal battlefields of the Pacific, Spam became a staple, and the local fast food joints still sell Spam burgers. And a few years later, during the Korean War, American army bases left behind surplus cans. Koreans turned them into budae jjigae, army-base stew, mixing Spam with kimchi and noodles. Today it's a beloved comfort food, and South Korea is now one of the biggest Spam markets on Earth. A can invented to use up unwanted pork shoulder in Minnesota quietly rewrote the menu of half the Pacific. Somewhere, Jay Hormel is looking down going, I just wanted to sell the leftover bits of the pig. Buddy, you started a culinary dynasty. After the war, back home in America, Spam slowly became a punchline. The cheap meat, the joke food. By the 1990s, the word Spam even got borrowed for junk email. The little can lost its dignity. But now you know the truth. That can you walk past in the grocery store helped feed the armies that won a world war. It earned a thank you from a future prime minister and a Soviet leader. It kept civilians alive when they had nothing. And it didn't just survive the war. It sailed home in the hearts of half the world and became comfort food in a dozen cultures. Not bad for the cut of pork that nobody wanted. So next time you see that little blue and yellow can, maybe give it a nod. It's seen more history than you'd ever guess. I'm Food Talk. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.